Well, not much help I can be in explaining Walter Benjamin or Benjamin, however you want to pronounce it. I will pronounce it Benjamin. Walter Benjamin's The Work of Art in the Age of Mechanical Reproduction. This is not an essay. It is a series of remarks. As you can see, it numbered 1 through 12, something like that. I'm sorry, 1 through 15 or something, that are all inspired by the same sort of observation or troubling insight, or however you want to put it, but of what is happening to the work of art and the experience of the work of art and aesthetic experience in general in the 20th century. It was written in 1936. As we can see, there are all sorts of remarks here that are useful to us in generally what we're trying to do, which is to get a hold on the effect of changes in media on forms of perception, on consciousness, and sort of the way that spreads out through the rest of culture. If we look for quotes, individual quotes within Benjamin, we'll find some of them which are of obvious relevance. Let's see. Especially this one here, which in a way is just what Marshall McLuhan, in my understanding, later on in the semester when we read Marshall McLuhan, just what he was getting at. This idea that during long periods of human history, the mode of human sense perception changes with humanity's entire mode of existence. The manner in which human sense perception is organized, the medium in which it is accomplished, is determined not only by nature, but by historical circumstances as well, which is just that sense that I was trying to give in the first week's talk and looking at some of the excerpts that we did of an historical consciousness of the way that we see the world. How that way that we see the world can be changes through history. And especially the focus of our course here is the way that media can change, supposedly change. The thesis is change the way that we perceive the world and certainly the way we think. Now, as far as what Benjamin is getting at in the whole of this work, I don't think that it's easily summarized. There's all sorts of suggestive things that he says, and the scope is all very grand, and Marx is behind a lot of it, and he's worried about fascism. Obviously, he's a person living through the 1930s. Actually, he wouldn't make it. He would be dead by 1940 in a failed attempt to get out of Nazi Europe. Unfortunately, very tragic life that Walter Benjamin lived. But he's concerned with fascism. He's concerned with this new culture, a main aspect of this new culture being new forms of media, and he focuses especially on film. And he's trying to get a grasp on how the experience of art, the aesthetic experience, is changing during his time. And one of the things that he sees is just a total annihilation of the old culture. You might want to call it bourgeois culture, bourgeois European culture, sort of had its heyday in the 19th century. All sorts of things are changing. And one of the big changes, of course, is that industrialization has thoroughly moved into the art world. And he's interested in the kind of changes that happen because of that. Now, exactly what the changes are, I don't think we get a really clear idea from Benjamin. Just a bunch of suggestions, really. This is very, very famous quote here at the bottom where he says, one might subsume the eliminated element in the term aura and go on to say that which withers in the age of mechanical reproduction is the aura of the work of art. Yeah, the idea that works of art used to be unique objects and they had this aura around them, and part of it was the distance that the perceiver had to the work, separation between themselves and the work. That in the age of mechanical reproduction, that distance is eliminated. There's an immediacy to art, and also I don't know what you would call it. I mean, also I guess everything that goes along with that. No, there's all sorts of ways we could go here, and there's also ways that he does go. He makes very suggestive remark at the end where he starts to talk about politics. This is a very grand thesis, and one of the ideas is that works of art originally had a ritual or cult value. That is, actually a work of visual art, a sculpture or a painting, had its place within a certain ritual, usually a religious ritual. And he goes even back to the cave paintings of the early humans, and that was part of its aura, is the special role that the work of art played in some ritual, and that in modern mass culture that's been destroyed, that works of art have been decontextualized and are viewed in an entirely new way, and part of that view is the destruction of tradition. The uniqueness of a work of art is inseparable from its being embedded in the fabric of tradition. If the tradition surrounding that work of art, or that produced that work of art, has been destroyed, then its uniqueness has also been destroyed. And what does it become? Well, he suggests that it becomes politics, but exactly what he means by that, it's not really clear, I would have to say. And I think that a certain interpretation later on in the semester will be given by Neil Postman, not really by McLuhan, but by Neil Postman when he, in a much more direct and specific way, argues that there's a certain politics to television. That is, that the medium itself, the form of television itself, promotes a certain in a certain way, a certain type of politics, by trivializing everything and turning everything into entertainment. We don't get that kind of specific explanation from Benjamin, I don't think. We get some suggestions, though. We could look maybe just briefly at some of the other things in the essay. There's a lot in this about film, which was certainly the new emergent revolutionary medium of Benjamin's time, and the one that he spends the most time trying to get his mind around. In the Paul Valery essay, he was really thinking of music and just a tremendous way in which the experience of music could become a universal experience, something that we could experience on demand, which is an entirely new phenomenon, right? In the early 20th century, where you could put a record on or listen to the radio and hear a symphony orchestra or a jazz band. I mean, that was stunning, Music until the early 20th century was something you had to go and find a musician to play for you or play for yourself. But it's the film, it's movies that Benjamin spends the most time, the specific art form that he spends the most time talking about. Makes some very interesting remarks about the differences between an actor's performance on the stage as opposed to in a film. All sorts of interesting things. Just one that I'd like to maybe suggest you think about is the way that he suggests that the film is actually received by, consumed by, you might say, the audience. Works of art were produced in all sorts of different contexts, and who knows what exactly the intended audience was for those works of art, but they were contexted within a tradition. The thing about film is that from the beginning of film, it's been an industry. That is, because of mechanical reproduction, the cheapness with which the images and the sounds can be reproduced and distributed, it's an industry. It's a mass industry. Film from the beginning has been for the masses, for the proletariat. And the way that those works of art, those films, are actually consumed by or appreciated is different from the way that previous works of art were appreciated. This is in section 12, where he says mechanical reproduction of art changes the reaction of the masses toward art. The reactionary attitude toward a Picasso painting changes into progressive reaction towards a Chaplin movie. The progressive reaction is characterized by the direct, intimate fusion of visual and emotional enjoyment with the orientation of the expert. Such fusion is of great social significance. The greater the decrease in the social significance of the art form, the sharper the distinction between criticism and enjoyment by the public. Very interesting, and perhaps true still. As the social significance of an art form decreases, there's a separation between critical opinion and enjoyment by the public. We can see this in painting and in literature and in music. Think of classical music, which is really not enjoyed by the public to any great extent, and hasn't been for a long time, although there have been people who always will be devoted to it. Critical opinion and enjoyment by the public are widely separated. The same with painting and with literature, as opposed to sort of books that are written for fun. There's an alienation of the average person from the critic. The critic seems to hold the key to the art form, and somehow you have to be really smart or really cultured or really civilized to enjoy it. And then there's just things that you can enjoy, like going to the movies, or listening to a pop song. And those are the art forms that really have social significance, right? The ones that you don't need to have any kind of critical training to enjoy. He says the conventional is uncritically enjoyed. And I think he's really thinking of films, especially Hollywood films. And the truly new is criticized with aversion. With regard to the screen, the critical and the receptive attitudes of the public coincide. The decisive reason for this is that individual reactions are predetermined by the mass audience response they are about to produce. And this is nowhere more pronounced than in the film. The moment these responses become manifest, they control each other. Again, the comparison with painting is fruitful. A painting has always had an excellent chance to be viewed by one person or by a few. The simultaneous contemplation of paintings by a large public, such as developed in the 19th century, is an early system of the crisis of painting, a crisis which was by no means occasioned exclusively by photography, but rather in a relatively independent manner by the appeal of works of art, of artworks to the masses. And then just one more thing, painting is simply in no position to present an object for simultaneous collective experience, as it was possible for the architecture at all times, for the epic poem in the past and for the movie today. Interesting, sort of basically, amongst other things, saying that painting is finished. In a way, probably which literature is finished too. That the new art form is film, and it has a kind of a power similar to the epic poem in the pre-literate days, when people would recite poems to crowds, or to architecture, just something there. And that seems to be maybe, if I can find it, the sort of most important theme here is that just as architecture is just there, your surroundings, your physical surroundings, you don't even really notice them. You just absorb them on maybe a pre-conscious level or subconscious level. film and television and internet. I don't know. He's saying, I think he's suggesting that we just sort of absorb them. He says somewhere that the painting was there to absorb the individual, the individual who was looking at the painting. That is, the individual would become absorbed in the painting, whereas film, like architecture, is absorbed by the spectator. And this absorption is not a focused, conscious thing. It is a fairly distracted thing, and that's another. If you, it's always interesting to do this. If you search for words, just search the word distraction. Kind of interesting, and also maybe very contemporary, in the sense that what he's saying about film is you don't really have to concentrate; you just sort of absorb it. And I think one of the things we'll be getting at later in the course about our experience on the internet is that no one's really concentrating on anything, right? It's just one distracted experience, but you're absorbing things, right? Just in a sort of a subconscious way. Extremely interesting, this idea of a distraction. Yeah, this is interesting. This is again in section 15. The question remains whether it provides a platform for the analysis of the film. A closer look is needed here. Distraction and concentration form polar opposites, which may be stated as follows. A man who concentrates before a work of art is absorbed by it. He enters into this work of art the way legend tells of the Chinese painter when he viewed his finished painting. I don't know that reference. In contrast, the distracted mass absorbs the work of art. This is most obvious with regard to buildings. Architecture has always represented the prototype of a work of art, the reception of which is consummated by a collectivity in a state of distraction. What great buildings become great buildings because people sort of absorb them and collectively decide that they're great buildings. He's saying the same thing about film. It's a different sort of experience. This notion of just sort of absorbing things will come up again in Marshall McLuhan. The whole idea of the medium, not as the message, but the medium as the massage. That we're constantly being massaged, we're being worked over, we're being shaped without even really knowing it, by electronic media. So there's a lot of interesting things here. Take a look at this and get what you want out of it. Again, I do not think that there is an easily stated conclusion to this work. It's not really an essay. It's a collection of 15 different sort of commentaries around a central theme of trying to understand what's happening to art in the 20th century after it's been kind of revolutionized by modern techniques.